All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. My name is Kyle Demian. I'm joined here, as always, with Renji Matthew. And on today's podcast, we're actually going to be answering one of your questions. We had Mike D, 3278 from YouTube, leave a comment here saying that he discovered our podcast about a month ago and started watching from the beginning. Number one, kudos to you for going back to the beginning and watching. I love that. He goes on to say, so he's about 9 months behind right now. He's currently reading our suggested tax-free wealth book. And the book touches on, and you guys have mentioned too, about this idea of buying a property where you visit often. He goes on to say, I have two daughters, and like a lot of families, we try to go to Disney. So I thought a property there that we could also rent out might be something to consider. I'd love it if you all could do a video about this. And so, Mike D, number one, thank you so much for leaving your comment and your question. And yes, we're going to answer your question and we're going to talk about that today. And what a great idea, right? A family that wants to travel to Disney, and what better way to build wealth and to also, give yourself access to a free place to stay, right? So Renji, let's start to talk about number one, like, what are some people's different options to doing this, and where should they even start, right?
I mean, it all starts with the research. You want to figure out if it even makes sense for you with budget, with where it's going to be, location. It's all location, 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 right? So you want to make sure you have the best spot. And so in with this scenario, if you're trying to do it where you go to Disney all the time, you want to see if you can find something that's close. I mean, it's going to be hard to find something close, but something we've talked about standing out somehow, right? You want to go in depth on that a little bit, Kyle?
Yeah, so one of the ideas that we had, and this comes from our mentor actually showing us an Airbnb property probably 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember exactly where it was located, but one of my initial ideas was, especially if you have a family and two girls and you want to go to Disney, you should make like a Disney themed Airbnb, I think, especially if you want something where if you're going to visit often and you're going to want to stay, probably can't have long-term tenants in, that'd be weird to try to kick them out for a weekend if you want to go to Disney, right? But you're probably going to want to do like some type of Airbnb or really short-term strategy like that. Number one. And then number two, how can you make your Airbnb attractive if you did want to do that? And one of the ideas is, yeah, there's this pink Airbnb. I think it's out in Texas, but the whole design and the concept, it is geared for bachelorette parties, for groups of women or ladies that want to go out, have a weekend or a week-long trip, and want to stay in a really cool Airbnb. So it's all pink, it's decked out, it's got different things. I think it had a hot tub in it, but like it was totally different than everything else on the marketplace. And the interesting thing about that is when you separate yourself from the marketplace, you also get to charge more than the rest of the marketplace, and you still have a demand for your Airbnb. So imagine being able to charge more and still have a demand, right? When it comes to supply and demand, that's great. You don't want to stand in, or you don't want to be similar to everything else that's in the area. So number one, your strategy probably would have to be Airbnb, right? Number two, you're probably going to want to find something around Orlando, which interestingly enough, I used to live just outside of Orlando, about 20 minutes away for a few years. So I know the area very, very well. A lot of neighborhoods may have some HOAs, which come with HOA fees and/or HOAs that won't allow short-term rentals. So when Renji talks about doing your research, that's like some of the main things that you want to look at, right? What would the cost of it even be? So you want to look at your PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, PITI, and calculate up like what's the monthly budget, what's the monthly expense going to be. And then start to analyze, what different properties are going for on Airbnb or VRBO in the neighborhood and in the surrounding area, so that you get an idea of what the market even looks like. And this could turn out to be a bad strategy, right? You may not be the only person that's ever thought about this before, because Disney World is such a hot spot, but it's something that could be an opportunity. So like we said, always do the research. And now when it comes to that, Renji, we've done a podcast before about different ways to kind of, make real estate passive where you don't actually have to be there. So what are some of your thoughts or ideas? Mike didn't mention where he is from or where he's located, but from the sounds of it, he's not in Florida. But so for someone like that, what ideas or thoughts would you have for like being able to do real estate from outside of the state that you currently reside in?
Um, Research is definitely important, but then, like Kyle mentioned, you want to see if what the rules are, where you're trying to do it. If Airbnb is allowed, what that looks like. If there's any fines or specific fees for that, because a lot of states are cracking down on Airbnbs or making it stricter. So just need to be aware of that. And then, yeah, when it comes to that, also like Kyle mentioned, it could be a pink house, it could be a blue house, whatever it is, if it stands out. And this goes with anything in business. What are you doing to make yourself stand out? Why would other people come to you? If you're offering the same service as everyone else in that area, why would they come to you? How did they benefit from coming to you? Right? So make it extra valuable for them to come choose you, and then you want to brand yourself. This is where branding is huge because if you brand yourself in a specific way and people know you for who you are, it's like, oh, that's that guy. He does this. Then it's easy to reference you as someone that stands out instead of being, oh, he does it just like everyone else does. So, what can you do to help yourself stand out? Because if you can help yourself stand out, you could charge more for your service. You could be the first one they come to, and then it might be a point where you're like, okay, I need to get more properties because everyone's trying to come to my properties because I provided more value, right? So, what are you doing to stand out? And again, this goes with anything, not just real estate, any business you're doing, if you're in sales, whatever it is, why would you be the one people come to for that specific service, right? So, but yeah, going back to the question, it's good. It's great to go have that because if you're going there all the time, why not try to find a way to where it could be a tax write-off because you're going to be using, it's an expense that's there, right? Having those properties in the areas where you travel pretty often goes back to like Kyle mentioned in the beginning. Hey, it might be a free place for you to stay, and you could charge other people to come stay there when you're not there. Now, this also goes back to doing research on services that can help you clean the place, services that can change things out for you if something needs to be repaired, some type of property management that will help you with Airbnbs. That way you can truly make it passive. We had the boss nurses on our podcast earlier, and they talked about how, they've eventually made it to where everything is passive. They don't have to, they can just log in and check it once a week or something like that. But it doesn't become passive automatically. And that's, I think, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make when they get into real estate is they think it could be passive from the start. I mean, you can if it's syndication or something like that where you're not dealing with everything. But real estate is actually a lot of active work up front to make it passive eventually. So again, that work up front is doing your research. That work up front is figuring out what property management you want to work with, or people that will actually do the cleaning services and all of those things. You have to do your due diligence on that because same thing. When you're looking at that, you want to also see what makes them stand out. Why would I choose them to do my property management? Because you'll find property management is a good one is not easy to find. We've had issues with a lot of the ones we've used. We've had to change a lot of the ones we do. It's just you have to find one that you like and you could stick with. They might not everyone's going to do everything perfectly. You want to figure out what is important to you. Is getting your rent checks the most important thing? Okay, who does that best? Is being taking care of your property really well the best? Then who does that best? You'll find people that'll do multiple things really good, but communication might be horrible. We deal with the property management company where they take care of the property well, we get our rents on time, but communication's horrible. But at the way I see it, hey, because of the other ones we've dealt with, if I get my rent checks and they take good care of the property, I don't care if we never talk. You know?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it you just want to make sure what is important to you and do your due diligence on the services that are provided. Why would you want, just like you want to think about why would they choose your property? Why would they choose your service? you got to think the same way when you look for the services you're looking for too. Because if you have the right services and the right systems in place, everything can be passive.
For sure. One of the things that the boss nurses mentioned is having like the smart locks on their doors too, which I completely forgot about. But whenever I've checked into Airbnbs, yeah, they always give me a code, and it's a random code that generates every time they reset it. So a lot of people are doing it. A lot of people are leveraging it. And that's how, yeah, you can have, property owners that are probably not even in the same state, but are able to, manage their Airbnb properties that way. So I think we touched on just about everything that we wanted to analyze and review and kind of go through. Number one comes down to research. Number two, after doing your research, is making sure that the numbers actually work, and I guess that's part of research too. And then the third one is actually just executing. Nothing pains us more than talking about these concepts and talking about concepts and retirement with people and then them not doing anything, not actually implementing. That's the final step that needs to be taken and needs to be done, is to actually implement and to take the action, right? And so, Renji, anything else that we may have missed or anything else that you want to wrap up our show with today?
No, I think we covered that point enough.
For sure. Cool. Well, with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Mike D, thank you so much for the question. If you guys that are watching this have questions yourself, drop your question below and we'll do a podcast on it as well to cover that and to answer, what you guys may be thinking or what opportunities you guys may be exploring. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.